When the world is in chaos, do we choose fear or awareness? The world outside is very noisy, not only noisy with the sounds of guns, bombs, and conflicts appearing daily in the news, but also noisy with angry voices, accusations, and labels filled with hatred, racial division, religious discrimination, fear of those who are different, fear of losing power, losing safety, losing what we believe we own. Political leaders assert power through violence, through weapons, through threats, through spreading fear in order to hold their positions. And what about ordinary people? Ordinary people, people like you and me, are also responding to fear with violence. Violence in words, violence in actions, violence in the way we look at one another as enemies. The world is becoming more unsafe not only because of weapons out there, but because within the human heart, peace is slowly running dry. A question without an easy answer. We all say that we love peace. No one wants war. No one wants to lose their loved ones. No one wants their children to grow up in fear. So why is it that we ourselves participate in violence? Why do we share content filled with anger? Why do we so easily take sides and believe our side is absolutely right, while the other side is completely wrong? Why do we accept hurting others simply because they are different from us? This is a question I have asked myself many times, and honestly, for a long time, I had no answer. The journey of the monks and a gentle awakening. That changed when I followed the journey of Buddhist monks. Slow footsteps, quiet and steady, moving through a chaotic world. There were no hateful slogans, no calls for confrontation, no enemies, only mindful steps, only full presence in each breath, only an invitation to return inward. And then I saw something else. Tears. Tears of strangers. Tears of people from many races and many religions. Tears not born of pain, but because, perhaps for the first time, they touched peace within themselves. Crowds gathered not to shout, not to demand, but to listen to guidance on mindful practice, to listen to their own hearts. And I realized something very simple. In truth, all of us love peace. The root of violence is not evil, it is fear. Deep down, no one is born wanting to hurt another person. We hurt when we are afraid of losing safety, afraid of being abandoned, afraid of losing value, afraid that others will take what we believe is ours. Fear has no fixed shape, but it reveals itself clearly through the way each person responds. Some people sink into fear, withdraw from the world, harm themselves, and disconnect from life around them. Some choose violence, attacking first so they won't be hurt, using aggression to hide their inner vulnerability. Others choose to offer love, to listen deeply, to spread kindness and bring people closer together, not because they feel no fear, but because they have learned to face fear directly instead of allowing fear to control them. We share the same goal, only the paths differ. If we look deeply, we will see a quiet truth. All of us share the same goal: to feel safe, to be loved, to live in peace. But some walk toward that goal through fear, some through violence, and some through awareness. When we act from fear, we believe we must eliminate others to feel safe. When we act from awareness, we understand that no one can truly be safe while others are still suffering. Awareness does not end chaos, but it prevents us from being lost. Awareness does not mean the world will instantly become peaceful. It does not mean war will end tomorrow. It does not mean people will stop hurting one another. But awareness prevents us from becoming part of the chaos. It helps us recognize when we are reacting from fear, when we are feeding hatred, when we are unconsciously contributing to violence through our thoughts, words, and actions. A mindful person may not change the whole world, but will certainly not make it worse. Peace does not begin in politics. It begins in the human heart. We often wait for peace to come from grand decisions, from treaties, from leaders. But true peace cannot be imposed from the outside. Peace begins when one person pauses and recognizes their own fear. When one person chooses not to respond with hatred, chooses not to label others as enemies, chooses not to let fear lead the way. Peace begins with very small things: a slow breath, a steady step, a moment of listening without judgment, a quiet act of kindness that needs no recognition. We always have a choice between chaos and calm, between fear and awareness, between violence and love, every day, every moment. The world may remain divided, but within each of us there is always a space where peace can take root. And when enough people choose to live from that space, the world slowly will change. Not through weapons, but through presence. Not through power, but through compassion. So perhaps the real question is not who is right or who is wrong. The real question is this: in this moment, am I acting from fear or from awareness? We may not be able to stop wars. We may not be able to change governments. But we can stop fear from spreading through us by pausing, by breathing, by choosing not to pass fear on to another human being. Peace does not ask us to be perfect. It only asks us to be present. And every time one person chooses awareness over fear, the world becomes, even if just a little, safer. What do we do with fear? Fear will always be there. We don't need to eliminate it. We only need to understand it. We begin by noticing fear without judging ourselves for having it. We breathe and allow fear to be present, without letting it take control. We listen to what fear is trying to protect: our safety, our belonging, our sense of worth. And then, gently, we choose not to act from fear. We choose not to let fear turn into anger, not to let fear become hatred, not to let fear turn another human being into an enemy. When fear arises, we slow down. We return to the body, to the breath, to this moment. Because fear loses its power the moment it is met with awareness. We may still feel afraid, but we no longer let fear decide who we become.